Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we've got some more vintage mint on cards, some packaged items that sold last night, September 15th, over on eBay by AFA and CIB. So all of these items are from that particular seller. And let me tell you, this is not hyperbole in the thumbnail. Record-shattering prices. Not everything sold for incredible prices, but the ones that did sell for record-breaking prices, I'm very comfortable saying that because the prices were absolutely crazy balls. I mean, just absolutely nuts. And so we'll get to the tri-logos at the end. They were all AFA 80s and 85s, 90s. I was literally just completely blown away by the final sales prices. Before we dig into those, I do want to show a few of the others that they had in this auction. First was an AFA 80 Lumat punched example, light yellowing to the blister, moderate yellowing, I would say. $227.50, very fair price. And, you know, I don't think that is kind of a big surprise to anybody for Lumat. We've talked about this in the past. Figure score 75. It's because the figures got yellowing, and mine's got one as well. I've got a tri-logo Lumat, same thing. It's got some yellowing to the actual figure torso. So just always check that if you're looking for a mint on card Lumat. Here was the return of the Jedi packaging for the mini rig vehicle maintenance energizer. $310 on an AFA 85. It is the later release. You know, I've seen other examples in very similar condition go for like 120 bucks ungraded. And so it's easy to find this one in fairly high grade, but you know, it's already graded and it's at auction, and 310 is not a terrible overpay, if an overpay at all. I think that price is probably just fine. AFA 75 plus sealed Chewbacca bandolier strap. So this is just an action figure carrying case that is super bizarre looking. And, you know, it's got little capsules for the accessories. I think I might have had one of these growing up, and it was kind of a weird thing, but I like it. It's pretty cool. $310 on that. That one I'd say is a little high for a 75 plus. You can find one in pretty similar condition that would probably set you back 150 bucks, maybe 200 bucks top end. It does seem a little harshly graded to me. I don't see any fold on the flap for the packaging, yet it's still only got a 75 plus. That seems a little undergraded to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Here was the Size Snoodles and Max Rebo band. This was an AFA 75 plus. And, you know, again, looking at this one, this is probably appropriately graded. You can see the obvious crease on the flap there. If it's got the flap crease, 75 is about as best you're going to do on that one. Otherwise, it was very clean. The blister was in great shape. I don't see any yellowing to the blister at all. Let's see if the label had that. It was, yeah, a clear blister, which is pretty awesome. That's really hard to find that. And that one sold for $650. Again, a very fair price, just given what it was. The C-3PO collector case. This is another one that you can find oftentimes for about 150 to 225 bucks ungraded in pretty similar condition. 385 final winning sales price on that. That's a big box. That's a big acrylic box, but 385 is very much in line with market. Here was that Rebel transport that I highlighted in a what to buy video a couple of weeks back. $13.45 was the final sales price on that. AFA 75 plus, and it was factory sealed. And that's one you don't see very often, factory sealed and graded. And that was a beauty and kind of in line with what I expected. I was thinking like 1,500 bucks on that one. So it came in slightly below that number. All right, now on to the tri-logos. We're going to start off with the ones that I thought were pretty fair in terms of final prices, if not low, and then get progressively more ridiculous. This one was an AFA 85 FX7. Unpunched example for $432. That is really low. I was really surprised that one went as low as it did. I was thinking like 600-ish. We've seen some AFA 80s that both CIB and other sellers have sold that have sold in that 400 range. And $432 for an AFA 85. I thought that was a great deal. Probably one of the best deals from this auction batch. This was an AFA 85 Paleface Spanish PBP tri-logo. This was also on the German Parker card back. You can tell for the German Parkers because the hang tab is longer and narrower. That's what she said. And the back of the card is a brighter yellow. So this is one that I have in an AFA 80. I paid $600 for mine. This is an AFA 85 and sold for $516. So gulp yet again, and I overpaid on mine. So that was a good deal at $516. The Hoth Rebel Soldier unpunched card back, no price sticker, AFA 85 for $597. That was a little higher than I was willing to go. I was watching that one and watching football at the exact same time. And unfortunately, the game caught my attention and I forgot about this one. I was thinking max on this one for me, if I was going to bid, $500 to $550. So it did go a little higher, but it was an AFA 85, so I get it. You know, that was a nice example. I don't think that was a terrible overpay, if an overpay at all. Here was an AFA 85 AT-AT driver, and this one went low as well. And I was a little surprised on this one. There was another AFA 85, I believe, that sold for over $800 recently. I can't remember the grade on it. I think it was an 85 grade. But it might have been a punched example. This one was unpunched, and it sold for $717. So again, that was another very good deal, I think, for an AFA 85. That's a very fair price point. This is one that I think I'm chalking up the final sales price on this to the fact that this one has the Meccano blister. I think it's a Meccano blister. It's one of those smaller, narrower blisters, and it is yellowed, which that to me usually signifies that it's a Meccano blister. It seems like those smaller, narrower blisters are Meccano, and they do tend to yellow very easily. It was an AFA 85, old label, no subgrades, and it has yellowed since grading, and it still sold for $977. That price seems really high to me, but again, I'm chalking it up to the fact that it's a variation that maybe is tough to find. But given that it's an old grade and the grade no longer applies because it's a yellow blister now, I was really surprised at that price. I was thinking like $300 to $400 on that one. So that went over double what my expectations were. But again, I don't know the price premium that people are willing to pay for these smaller Meccano blisters relative to the standard Palitoy Tri-Logo blister. Apparently it's a big premium. That's a big number to me. Next up was another one. I can't tell you why, but again, this was the same situation where it was labeled a clear blister, AFA 85, Anakin Skywalker, straight 85s, but the blister had yellowed, and again, it's that smaller Meccano blister. $1,099. So, again, it's just one of those things that I'm assuming that there's a particular buyer out there, or buyers more likely, that are willing to pay big money for these French blisters. That was a big number. And the other thing too with Anakin, in the regular Palitoy blisters that are really big, that Anakin is a heavy figure. And I can't count how many times I've seen the Tri-Logo for Anakin, because that figure can act as a torpedo during shipping and it goes right through the blister. I've seen it at least 3 or 4 times that has happened. Whereas with this one, you're much more likely to get this one in the condition that's advertised and shown in the photos, because it's not going to rattle around as much. There's not as much give inside the blister for that one. Next up, we've got some of the main heroes that sold in high grade. This was an AFA 85 Han Solo Bespin, and that one sold for $946. I don't think that's an overpay at all, probably in line with market. Likewise for the Han First 12, another AFA 85. This was also on the German Parker card back, as you can see by the hang tab and by the back of the card. $1,033 on that one. And, you know, I don't know what the fair market value is, but those are probably numbers that I'd be willing to spend pretty easily if I was in the market for one. Here was an unpunched Princess Leia Hoth, AFA 85 as well, $1,125 on that one. Again, probably about right. We saw the first 12 Princess Leia that sold, I think, for around $2,800 last week. That was an AFA 85. Here's the matching one that sold for less than half that price for the Leia Hoth. Great looking example. Love that card back. This is the look that my wife gives me every day when she takes a look at my collection room. What is wrong with you, John? Hands on hips, hangry, she needs a snack. This is exactly the look my wife gives me. Next up is an Obi-Wan Kenobi AFA 85, $14.91. That seems a little high to me, but it is an AFA 85. CIB earlier this year had an AFA 80 that sold for $800 or $900, somewhere in that ballpark. So is that a terrible overpay for an AFA 85? I would argue probably about right. You know, you got to spend about 50% more to get the 85 grade. Is it an 85? That's maybe a little more questionable. The card score got an 85. If you look at the left-hand side of the card back, obvious crease by the blister, and then obvious litho wear on the whole left side of the card back. I would argue this is probably overgraded. Just my opinion. Buy the figure, not the card back, right? Or not the item. Buy the figure, not the grade. This is a AFA 85 EV99 unpunched no price sticker that sold for $13.31. I guess about right. I don't know. I mean, we've seen some AFA 80s that I think there was an AFA 80 that sold recently, and we also saw a UKG 85 that sold recently in the $700 to $800 range. So again, you're paying up for AFA label and you're paying up for an 85 grade from them. So $13.31 on that one. Here's where things start to go off the rails a little bit. Okay, so this was an AFA 85 Paplu. Okay, Paplu's not terribly hard to find on the Tri logo. $2,400. I have no idea what's going on with this one, why this one sold so high. I was thinking like maybe at the very top end, $600, maybe $700 if you're really pushing it. $2,400 is easily 3 to 4 times what I consider to be fair market value. And again, this one was the German Parker card back, but wow, AFA 85 for $2,400. And then we get into the 90s, and this is where things get really crazy. This was an AFA 90 8D8. That sold for $3,250. Absolutely jaw-dropping on that price. But again, it comes back to what we talked about. I know I repeat this ad nauseum, but now that the population reports are out there, it's probably a 1 of 1. That's my guess. I bet this one is a 1 of 1 at this grade, a 90 grade. $3,250, and then the other 90 was a $4,750 final sales price on the Imperial Commander. I mean, good Lord, those prices were nuts. Okay, absolutely nuts. And I get it. Okay, it's very low pop, probably 1 of 1s. I didn't look them up, but here's the big one. This one was a shocker. $6,200 on an AFA 85 Tri-Logo Emperor's Royal Guard. Now, you remember, I've mentioned this one many times and saying, hey, this is that very second tier below the Jawa, below the General Maydeen. You almost have to put this one in line with the Jawa now. This one went for about 3 times what I was expecting. I was thinking it would go for around $2,000, maybe $2,200, somewhere in that ballpark. But it went for $6,200. I mean, I don't understand that at all. 85, 80, 90 for it. It was a beauty. It was a beauty. This is a standard Palatoid, not the German Parker. But wow, you can see some rippling on the top of the blister there. Very faint, but it's there. I can see why it got the 85. I think it's probably about an 85. It does have some card edge wear on the left-hand side, though. On the left-hand side, right there and at the bottom there. So you could maybe make an argument that this is more like an 80 plus as well. So this is a case where I don't know what the market was thinking. Even if you give it the 85 grade, which I would argue this is really more like an 80 plus. If you give it the 85 grade, I still don't see how you get to anywhere near $3,000 for this. I don't see it. Is it the first time I've seen a high-grade example of the Tri-Logo Emperor's Royal Guard at auction on eBay or anywhere recently? At least in the last year, if not 2? Yes, it is. It's the first time I've seen one in a while, so that could have played a part. It could be a low population figure at this grade, but $6,200, no matter which way you cut it, is a huge, huge number. And a sign that the market is alive and well, at least for Tri-Logos. Some of these went for very fair prices, but starting with that Paplu and up, the prices absolutely blew me away. And again, I'm not disparaging anybody if they bought these, okay? I'm not trying to do that. I'm just giving you my personal opinion as somebody who's bought probably 12 mocks AFA graded for the Tri-Logo line this year. So I track these prices fairly closely. But that is a big number. That is a big number. So given these prices, I can't wait to see what happens when I think in the Hakes auction coming up in November, there's going to be a pretty significant graded population of Tri-Logos that come up. And if we can, we need to try to remember some of these prices and you guys can correct me when I misquote these prices when we talk about the November Hakes auction, because I think there's going to be some stunners in that auction. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back soon.